There's a strange contrast in San Francisco. You'll find billion-dollar tech companies rubbing shoulders with tent cities, tourists snapping selfies near Union Square, just blocks away from entire blocks overtaken by makeshift shelters. This isn't just a passing phase. This is the new face of one of America's most iconic cities. The story of homelessness in San Francisco isn't just about poverty. It's about broken systems, political gridlock, and the brutal reality of what happens when the cost of living outpaces the basic right to live. For a city known worldwide for innovation, art, and beauty, how did it become a place where thousands sleep on concrete and hope for a better morning? This episode of our channel takes you deep into that uncomfortable question. We're not here to shock, but to understand and to ask what went wrong, what's being done, and what happens next. If you're moved by stories that go beyond the surface, hit that like, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to our channel. Now, let's dive in. The current landscape. Life on the streets. San Francisco isn't just one of the wealthiest cities in the United States. It's also one of the most visibly broken. According to the 2024 point-in-time count, the city reported 8,328 people experiencing homelessness, but advocates say the real number is likely closer to 10,000 when accounting for those cycling between temporary motels, vehicles, and couch surfing. In a city of just over 800,000 residents, that means more than 1 in every 80 people is unhoused, a staggering ratio that rivals any major American city. But statistics only tell part of the story. Walk through the Tenderloin, south of Market, Soma, or the Mission District, and you'll see the crisis with your own eyes. Entire blocks swallowed by tents. Makeshift shelters constructed from tarps and shopping carts. Individuals suffering from mental illness shouting into the void. The scent of urine and despair lingers in alleyways once filled with gallery-goers and tech workers. In San Francisco, homelessness isn't a background issue, it's the foreground. It dominates the urban landscape like graffiti on a collapsing wall. Of those counted in 2024, 5,107 individuals, 61%, were considered unsheltered. That means they sleep in parks, under freeway overpasses, on sidewalks, inside encampments, or in their cars. San Francisco's shelter system, while heavily funded, remains undersupplied. At last count, the city had fewer than 2,100 shelter beds, and most were already assigned, leaving thousands on long waitlists or simply shut out. The demographics of the crisis are also shifting. Nearly 16% of the homeless population now consists of seniors over the age of 60, up from 10% just 5 years ago. Black San Franciscans make up only 6% of the city's population, but over 35% of its homeless residents. LGBTQ+ youth, particularly transgender individuals, are disproportionately represented as well. Often pushed out of homes due to family rejection. Daily survival becomes a full-time job. Hygiene becomes a privilege. Medical care is a distant fantasy. In 2024 alone, the city logged 1148 overdoses, many of them occurring in or near homeless encampments. Even basic safety isn't guaranteed. The San Francisco Police Department reported an 11% increase in assaults involving homeless individuals, either as victims or perpetrators, compared to 2023. For some, a tent is the only home they've known for years. Others fell into homelessness during the pandemic and have never climbed out. The city's once booming economy, powered by tech giants, now coexists awkwardly with some of the worst poverty in the Western world. And this is just the beginning of the story. To understand how San Francisco, a city with a $14.6 billion annual budget, ended up in this crisis, we need to look at a more recent tipping point. Next, we examine the impact of COVID-19, not as the origin of homelessness, but as the accelerant that turned a chronic crisis into a wildfire. COVID-19, catalyst of collapse. When COVID-19 arrived in early 2020, the entire world was thrown into chaos. But for the homeless population in San Francisco, The pandemic wasn't just a health emergency, it was an existential one. The city, like many others, implemented public health mandates designed to slow the spread of the virus. That meant reducing the number of people in shelters to allow for social distancing. In practice, this resulted in a 76% reduction in available beds. Thousands were left with nowhere to go except the streets. And that's exactly where they went. Within 6 weeks, the number of tents in San Francisco tripled. Neighborhoods like the Tenderloin saw sidewalks transformed into makeshift encampments. Some locals called it a humanitarian disaster. Others called it a public health nightmare. But no one could deny it was happening. To its credit, the city scrambled to act. It launched a program called Shelter in Place, SP, converting over 25 hotels into temporary housing for more than 3,700 high-risk homeless individuals. It was expensive, yes, but it was effective. At least in the short term. People were housed, fed, and protected from the virus. But what happened next? Less than half, only about 1,800 people, were transitioned into stable housing afterward. The rest, as funding dried up, were left to fend for themselves once again. Is temporary shelter enough? Or are we just hitting snooze on a ticking time bomb? Let's peel back another layer by asking a bigger question. Why are so many people ending up on the streets in the first place? A fractured safety net. Where the system fails. San Francisco spends more money per homeless person than nearly any other city in the country. An estimated $700 million per year goes toward fighting homelessness, and yet, the crisis continues to grow. The city has the programs: emergency rental assistance, free mental health clinics, needle exchange vans, outreach teams on the street. There's no shortage of effort. But still, thousands remain on the margins. Why? A big part of the answer lies in the housing market. The average rent for a studio apartment in San Francisco is over $2,500 per month, and that's on the low end. For someone earning minimum wage or on disability, those numbers simply don't add up. Many people are just one missed paycheck away from eviction. In 2024, San Francisco began slashing its emergency rental assistance budget, citing post-pandemic fiscal pressure. The result? Over 10,000 low-income families are now at risk of being forced out of their homes, especially in historically underserved neighborhoods like Bayview and Tenderloin. This isn't just about money. It's about mental health and addiction. Roughly 1/3 of the homeless population suffers from serious mental illness or substance use disorders. But access to long-term treatment is limited. Many clinics are overwhelmed or understaffed. Some people don't even qualify unless they commit a crime. And let's not forget the red tape. Try applying for public housing in San Francisco, and you'll find waiting lists that stretch for years, not months. Try navigating the process while living on the street, battling addiction, or dealing with schizophrenia. It's a near impossible task. How long can we expect people to hang on while waiting for a lifeline that never arrives? If the safety net is tearing apart, what's behind the fray? That's where we dive deeper into the root causes and political decisions that brought us here. Underneath the surface, why homelessness keeps growing. When we talk about homelessness in San Francisco, the conversation often centers around what's happening now: tents, needles, mental health crises. But to truly understand the scale of the disaster, we have to dig deeper. What led to this? What are the root causes? Start with the obvious: the housing market. San Francisco's real estate prices are not just high, they're astronomical. As of late 2024, a basic studio apartment averages $2,500 per month. And even modest one-bedrooms routinely top $3,400 per month. For people on fixed incomes, Social Security, or hourly wages, these numbers don't just sting. They disqualify you from living in the city altogether. Many residents live paycheck to paycheck, often without any savings. A sudden medical emergency, job loss, or rent hike can tip people over the edge. And with eviction protections weakened post-COVID, thousands have fallen straight through the cracks. But rent alone doesn't explain it all. The mental health crisis plays a massive role. California, despite its wealth, struggles with one of the worst ratios of psychiatric beds per capita in the U.S. Over 35% of San Francisco's homeless are grappling with untreated schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, or severe depression. Without intervention, many spiral into drug use as a form of self-medication. There's also a serious flaw in how the criminal justice and healthcare systems intersect. Because of state laws, police can't force people into treatment unless they're in immediate danger. That means someone can be psychotic, clearly in need of help, but still left on the streets. The system protects individual rights, yes, but sometimes at the cost of human lives. Meanwhile, drug addiction, especially opioids and methamphetamine, continues to ravage lives. Harm reduction strategies like safe injection sites or needle exchanges have sparked political firestorms. Critics say they enable addiction. Supporters argue they save lives. But the data is murky and results are slow. There's a question every San Franciscan must eventually confront. Is this the price of freedom or the cost of neglect? Regardless of where you fall on that debate, the next logical question is this: what is the government actually doing to fix any of this? A patchwork response. Government solutions and broken promises. On paper, San Francisco and the state of California have launched countless programs to address homelessness. But the results are, at best, mixed and at worst, damning. Let's start with the local government. San Francisco spends around $700 million a year on homelessness, more than any other U.S. city per capita. This includes permanent supportive housing, outreach programs, needle exchanges, mobile health vans, mental health response teams, and emergency rental assistance. Yet for all that spending, the numbers have barely budged. Critics argue the city lacks coordination, too many agencies doing overlapping work, with no central strategy. There's also waste. Investigative reports in 2024 uncovered that some city contracts for supportive housing charged $600 to $700 a night per unit, with questionable oversight. Mayor London Breed's administration has attempted to take a harder line, clearing encampments while offering services, but the effort has drawn lawsuits from civil rights organizations. Courts ruled that unless shelter beds are available, the city cannot forcibly remove people from public spaces. The result? A standstill, with tents returning days after sweeps. At the state level, Governor Gavin Newsom has pledged over $3.3 billion in new investments, focusing on mental health reform, expanding treatment beds, and building more transitional housing. He also pushed Proposition 1, a March 2024 ballot measure, which passed narrowly and allowed for a mental health infrastructure overhaul. But even good intentions come with caveats. New housing takes years to build, permitting is slow. Neighborhood opposition, often from liberal residents, blocks development. Everyone supports housing the homeless in theory, but few want it built next door. Then there's the federal angle. During the pandemic, the Biden administration rolled out the Emergency Housing Voucher (EHV) program, a key piece of the American Rescue Plan. These federal vouchers help tens of thousands of homeless individuals find apartments across the country, including thousands in the Bay Area. But in 2025, federal funding cuts were announced. The EHV program is scheduled to end by mid-2026, leaving up to 60,000 people nationwide in danger of losing their homes again. San Francisco could see hundreds, if not thousands, thrown back onto the streets. Is the U.S. government doing enough? Should housing be treated like a right or remain a privilege reserved for those who can pay? That question hangs heavy over every city like San Francisco. And that's exactly why, in this travel documentary, we chose to turn the lens inward and examine one of America's richest cities through the eyes of its poorest residents. Because ultimately, this isn't just a local issue. It's a national reflection. Let's wrap up this journey with what it all means and what comes next. Final thoughts. San Francisco has always been a place of contradictions, a city of gold and grit, innovation and inequality. But today, the homelessness crisis threatens to define it more than any postcard skyline or Silicon Valley success story ever could. Homelessness is no longer a fringe issue. It's everywhere, in plain sight, in public parks, on transit lines, outside Whole Foods. And it's not just about the people living on the street. It's about all of us, about what kind of society we want to live in, what kind of community we want to build. The answers aren't simple, but pretending the problem doesn't exist won't make it go away. We must face it, not with pity, but with purpose. Not just with money, but with leadership and accountability. This is not just a San Francisco story. It's a warning and a call. If you found value in this episode of our channel, where we use the power of travel documentaries to expose both beauty and brokenness, then please like this video, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to our channel. Your voice, your awareness, and your actions matter. In the end, cities are reflections of their values. And the story of homelessness is not written in tense, it's written in what we choose to do next.